Okay. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 summary. So chapter 1 has primarily two sections. The first section, which is introduction to the context of Bhagavad Gita, the war setting and other things like that. And then primarily the second section is going to cover the reasons Arjuna gives as to why he doesn't want to fight. Again, chapter 1 section, first section has further subsections, 3 subsections. And it begins with preparation for war. Secondly, signs of victory for Pandavas. Even before the war itself begins, there are very clear signs that Pandavas would win the war. What are those? And Krishna as the lover of his devotees. That is subsection C. Okay. So, and then the reasons that Arjuna gives why he doesn't want to fight is the second part. So what we do, we will just quickly read the translations and get the context of the chapter. So as I said, there are sections. We're going to go through different sections. So the first section of the, the first part of the first section is covered in 13 verses. Oh, is my voice breaking?
For me, it's good, Prabhu.
No, it's not. For me also, it's good, Prabhuji.
I will stop my video in case it reduces the use of bandwidth. So that way it will be, you may hear better. Yeah, so let's read verses 1 to 13, just the translations, okay? So can anyone volunteer for me to read the first 13 verses, just the translations like you see here? Go ahead.
I can read, Prabhuji. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Text 3. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Text 4. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Text 5. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kundibhoja, and Saibhya. Text 6. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Text 7. But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Text 8. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta, called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Text 9. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Text 10. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Text 11. All of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic positions of entrance into the phalanx of the army.
Yeah, so this is the first section, 1 to 11 verses, where it begins with the question from Dhritarashtra. A question from this Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra is not in the war; he's in his kingdom. Sanjaya is sitting along with him, and he's relating what is happening in the battlefield, because Sanjaya has an extraordinary power to have dur darshan, meaning he is able to see within his heart what exactly is happening in the battlefield. It's very similar to what we have in television right now. But he was bestowed that particular benediction by his spiritual teacher, Vyasadeva. So now he, after assembling in a battlefield, what would people do? They're going to fight. But in any case, Dhritarashtra would ask the same question, knowing very well the consequence of what's going on there. But still he's interested to know and more details of that. And then Sanjaya says what exactly is happening there in the battlefield, and then he talks about what his son Duryodhana is talking about the situation in the battlefield, because all this formation that is there is already pre-planned. And now he is looking at all the great warriors on both sides, just making an estimate of strength of both sides, right? And then he's relating about them. This is just art of military arrangements. So in this preparation for war teaches about battle of life all of us go through, isn't it? So the literal word Duryodhana means, Dur means bad, Yodhana means a warrior, a bad warrior. Right? We all go through battles of life, and we see typically two personalities. One is a bad warrior, the other is a good warrior, or a person who is studying battles of life. The word Yudhishthira means, Yudh means fight, Sthira means the one who is studying. So we can see from these words, there are personalities who are, in the battle of life, there will be personalities who are not good warriors versus there are good warriors. What does it mean by good warrior versus bad warrior, right? Duryodhana, all his life, he put his own personal pleasures over following the principles. So that is his approach towards life. All his life, he was always self-centered, always put his own happiness over others. Doesn't matter what others think, what others feel. It's his happiness that matters. And Yudhishthira, on the other hand, always put principles over pleasure. Even after winning the battle, he was not happy because so many people were killed. So he, after winning the battle, after becoming the king, after ruling the country, he was always morose that there were so many people killed. And then there was an interesting conversation that happens when to appease his pain in the heart, Krishna takes him to Bhishma, who is about to die, to give him the instructions on Rajaniti, to just give him, on what has happened and why it is not wrong. Even though Krishna himself can tell, but still he wants to give that knowledge through Bhishma. So the point is, that is his nature. He always put principles over his own pleasures. Right? And the literal meaning of word Dhritarashtra, Dhrit means one who holds tight, hold on to. Rashtra means land, right? Kingdom. So Dhritarashtra means a person. Dhritarashtra is a temporarily arranged king, because Pandu once becomes the king, naturally his descendants would become the next kings. That's how the the system was. However, he knows very well that principle, but still he preferred his own sons to take over the battlefield, to take over the kingdom after him. So that is very similar to how we see in the modern politicians, where they just hang on to the post forever, right? Yeah. So we all go through battles in life. Like I said, there are good warriors as well as bad warriors. The battles are coming because of situations, with other people, and the problems of our own mind, and nature also troubles us, like coronavirus. So there are all these battles we all have to struggle and fight over all our life, right? So the one who puts principles over his own pleasures will come out victorious in the long run. So that's the practical lesson we can learn from this. So you all know about ecological cycles, food chains. You all heard about it, right? So in our school studies, we learned about how in this ecological cycle, there is interdependence between different living entities. Meaning the existence of every living entity is essential for the complete for the cycle to complete. Meaning, uh, you know, every one of those organisms is essential for the smooth sustenance of the chain, right? So, for example, deer eats, leaves and fruits, and then lion eats that, and then lion becomes part of earth again. So, like that, the cycle continues. One interesting fact: there is only one living entity that is not really required to be part of it, doesn't fit in this cycle. Any cycle, you take ecological cycle or food chain or anything, this one living entity doesn't fit in the cycle at all. What is that living entity? Anyone has any idea? So every living entity is necessary part of a food chain, but
Human.
there is just this one living entity called human being, whose existence is non-essential for the execution of the cycle. So, what role does human have in this, in this world or in this environment? So he can contribute for the betterment or destruction of his surroundings. We see how we destroy the nature around us, right? So, when we put principles first over our own pleasures, we actually contribute positively to the betterment of our surroundings. So that's the lesson we all can learn from this personalities, right? So learn the principles and follow them. That's the application we can take. But wait, what are principles? And what are these principles that I'm talking about? And where do we learn these principles, right? So the principles are universal truths that sustain the very fabric of this universe. Meaning, those truths are eternal truths, and by following them, we actually lead a very harmonious and meaningful and purposeful life. And where do we find them? In the Vedic scriptures, we find the principles of dharma. All of us are now studying Bhagavad Gita. That's where it explains who you are, what's the purpose of your life, where do you come from, where do you go, how life would be in this world. All of those things are given. And when we understand and follow those principles, dharma rakshita rakshita means when you protect dharma, when you protect these principles, the principles will in turn protect you back, right? And when we violate, we actually have natural consequences. We will have karmic reactions accordingly. So we cannot break those principles. We only can break our head against them. So that's the first application you can learn from this. So why is Duryodhana a bad warrior? Because he is ready to play fall games just to get some pleasure in life. Right? So the lesson is, when life is going on nicely, right? That's when we need to spend our time focused on spiritual life. Right now, we are all still young. We still have our energies, time. So this is the time to nourish ourselves spiritually, right? So there is this famous saying: more you sweat in peace, less you bleed in war. If suppose a warrior were to go and fight in the war, but before the war, for many years he was not really practicing how to fight the war. He was relaxed, he was not really caring. Now he goes to fight. What happens? He's going to bleed in the war because he's not prepared. But somebody prepares very hard, waking up early in the morning, you know, practicing all the arts of war, keeping his body fit and strong for the war, to be ready for the war. Then he can easily go the fight, easily win the battle, doesn't get hurt much. So more you sweat in peace, less you bleed in war. So, so the more we practice spiritual life intensely, when we are normal, when your life is smooth, when challenges come in life, the more prepared we are to face it, right? So we may wonder, how do we face challenges in life? The way to face is how well prepared you are spiritually. That's what determines how well you face the challenges in life. Okay? There's no shortcut to it. We all have to go through challenges, and to be well equipped, we need to have good sadhana. Like all of you are now chanting the holy name. That is everyday strong dose of spiritual medicine. Right? You're taking like a vaccine every single day. So that's going to help you. You don't know how it is going to help you, but when challenges come, you would see how you come out winning. Right? So this is the practical lesson. So the summary of this section is, we all come across battles in life. If we are well prepared, we can face them appropriately. So the other lesson is, put principles first or pleasures. Don't run for quick enjoyment. That's not. Always, you know, always put the right principles ahead of your own personal pleasures. These are the two important lessons. Now we'll move on to, oh, actually up to 13. Okay. So signs of victory 14 to 20, but we should read from 12 because we missed two verses there. So let's go and read the verses 12 to 20. 12 to 20. Yeah. Who is going to volunteer for me to read? Can anyone volunteer to read? You can unmute yourself. Who is going to read? Like, I'm not able to hear anything.
I will read.
Prabhu, I can.
Yeah, go ahead. Who is that?
Srividya.
Yeah, Sri Vidya Mataji, go ahead. Yeah. 12th.
Text 12. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Text 13. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous.
Yeah.
Text 14. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by the white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Text 15. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell, called Poundra. Text 16 to 18. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kasi, the great fighter Sikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Draupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others. O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Text 19. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Text 20. At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot, bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words.
Yes, we can stop here. So these are basically at this point, now everybody is assembled there. War is about to begin. And so the Vedic culture at those times is that the war begins with the blowing of conch shells. And the war would, if you read here very interestingly, all the conches had a name, isn't it? For example, the Lord Krishna who blew it first, his conch shell is known as Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his called Devadatta. Bhima, his conch shell is called Poundra. Yudhishthira, Ananta Vijaya. Nakula and Sahadeva, Sugosha and Manipushpaka. And then after that, again, the other party also blew their conch shells. But interestingly, when Arjuna and other Pandavas were blowing the conch shells, it was like shattering the hearts of sons of Dhritarashtra. It was like scary. That sound was scary for them. And then there are other symptoms as well, like the flag marked with Hanuman. So there was an interesting story that happened while Arjuna was on a trek to get more, become more powerful in terms of, as a warrior. One time he meets, not Arjuna, yeah, all the Pandavas were going. And Bhima actually meets the incident where he meets Hanuman. And as part of the discussion, Hanuman promises that he's going to join the war, but in the form of a symbol on the chariot of Arjuna. And when the war begins, everybody is trying to psychologically dominate the other person. So they would be shouting, especially Bhima was always shouting, trying to, psychologically weaken the opposite side. So whenever Bhima shouts, Hanumanji would immediately join him in the shout, and both of them would uproariously sound such that the hearts of the other side would just break every time. So that's the interesting story between Hanuman with Hanuman. So all these conch shells were blown. Let's quickly go through quickly in this summary here. And the culture, as I was mentioning, one of the aspects is the war would begin at a fixed time in the day, like sunrise at 6 o'clock to evening 6 p.m., like that. So there is a fixed time. And after that, sometimes, the opposite warriors would go into the other party. There is no restriction or, there is no enmity displayed anymore. In fact, at one point in time, Arjuna would visit after the, during the third day or so, Arjuna would visit the camp of Duryodhana. And Duryodhana would welcome him and say, "Hey Arjuna, what brings you here? Do you want victory? I'm ready to give you." So like that, there is a friendly talk between them. So that's how the culture was. So they don't violate the culture, right? In today's world, how do they fight? They just blow out a city right like that, silently without the culture is very low culture right now. The warfare culture is very far low. And we also saw how the consuls themselves are named, means they are respected. In Vedic culture, everything is respected. Nobody kicks with their like anything, because that's against, because that's everything is belongs to God. So we should respect every aspect, every person, everything. So that kind of was the culture there. Even consuls were respected. They had names. And okay, all the people are assembled. It's not like, okay, let's jump in and quickly fight and kill before they actually start. No, that's not how the war would happen those days. So they would all wait for Bhishma to actually shoot the first arrow, because he's the eldest and the grandest of all, and he's also the leader of the Kuru side. Until he is going to shoot his first arrow, nobody would actually begin the war. Right? The other aspect is, before the war begins on the first day, all the Pandavas would respectively reach out, would respectfully reach their teacher Dronacharya, who is on the other side, and also their grandfather Bhishma, take their blessings, fall at their feet, take their blessings, and then go back to war. Even though it is war, and they're going to see the death of either this or the other party, still there is such culture that. And then interestingly, both of them bless them that may you be victorious. That's how the conversation goes. Yeah, so that's the Vedic culture aspect. And then what are the signs of victory for Pandavas? So one of the sign is Hanumanji on the chariot of Arjuna. You see in this picture, Hanumanji is there on the chariot at the top. So that is a sign, because wherever Hanuman is there is always victory. And who else is on the side of Pandavas? Anybody? Besides Pandavas, who else is there?
Krishna.
Krishna.
Yeah, Krishna. Krishna, who is the husband of goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. Sorry. So goddess of fortune means good fortune, right? When you worship Krishna, naturally good fortune will follow, because Lakshmi will not stay without Krishna being there, right? So wherever Krishna is there is also always good fortune. Madhava on the side of Arjuna, husband of goddess of fortune. So wherever there is Krishna, in whosever life there is Krishna, there is always victory. Because Lakshmi is called Chanchala. She would not stay in one place. But when Madhava is there in your life, naturally, as his good wife, she would always be there in that home or family. So naturally, you would see goddess of fortune being always there on the side of Pandavas here. And naturally, that is a great sign of victory. Lord himself is there. What else is needed, right? So, before the battle begins, both Arjuna and Duryodhana were on a tour to actually recruit to their own camp from different kingdoms. So as part of that effort, on a particular day, both of them actually reach out to Krishna. And it was early in the morning. Krishna was asleep, and both Duryodhana and Arjuna were there. Arjuna was as being a devotee, he was at the feet of Krishna, and Duryodhana, the king, he stays near the head of Krishna. And when Lord Krishna wakes up, naturally he first sees Arjuna, and he would ask, and then he sees Duryodhana, and he would naturally ask, what brings you here? And both of them are express that, we want you to be on our side, right? That natural question. And so Krishna says, okay, I understand your request. You're both my family members. So I decided to not really participate in the war, but I can send my army, Vishnu Janas, to any party that wants as one choice. On the other hand, I can remain as a guide for the other party. You pick, what do you want? Whatever you want. You can take me, and I'm not going to fight. I would just advise. Or you can take my 10,000 warriors who would be fighting the war for you. So what would you choose? Naturally, being the youngest and the first person seen, he asks Arjuna to pick the choice. Arjuna would naturally choose what? Krishna, right? He wouldn't want Krishna's 10,000 army. And Duryodhana was in the meantime very, perplexed. He was thinking, what if Arjuna chooses 10,000 warriors? I'm going to lose. What is the use of having Krishna? He's not going to fight. He's just a, stationary object. There is no benefit, because that's how any materialistic person sees. They don't see the value in God, right? So he thought, having the soldiers is a better choice. And when Arjuna chose Krishna, he was so relieved, and he says, what can I choose? I don't have a choice. I'm going to pick you. I'm going to pick your army. And then that's how it starts, right? So now Arjuna has Krishna on his side. Naturally, goddess of fortune is in his side. And so victory is his ultimately. And we also heard how the blowing of conch shells of Pandavas were shattering Duryodhana's campaign's hearts. So that's another sign of victory for Pandavas. Yeah. After all of this arrangement, next thing that happens is Arjuna requests Krishna, after blowing conch shells and about to begin the war, right? Arjuna would request Krishna, can I see who has assembled on the other side? This is the beginning of doubt in the mind of Arjuna. See, they all are very clear in their mind what exactly they came. But suddenly he was, after seeing especially his own kinsman, a doubt arises in his heart. So similarly, in our own life, when we see the happenings in our life with our senses, pratyaksha, senses means with our eyes, ears, we acquire knowledge in this world, right? So that's called pratyaksha. Through our direct perception, we receive knowledge in this world. And then anumana means using our mind, we analyze it. When we do that, oftentimes situations of life can bewilder us, right? So similarly, just like Arjuna, when he was about to fight, he was prepared all his life for this particular war. He was the best warrior ever existed in the world, and now he is at the moment to display all that he learned, but his heart has weakened just by what he had seen in that assembly. Just by seeing all these people, his heart was weakened. So the lesson here is if we just depend on what we receive through our senses as knowledge in this world and use our own mind for processing what we receive, we often can get bewildered in in life. So we need to take shelter of Shabda, or the word of God, or the scripture. When we see the situations of life through the wisdom of scriptures, then we will not be bewildered. When hardships come, just like Mahatma Gandhi says, when challenges come in life and I see not a ray of hope in life, I immediately turn to a page of Gita, and from nowhere do I find a great joy and uh, satisfaction in life. So that's exactly uh, the situation of Arjuna here. He just saw his own relatives in the battlefield and he was confused. What should I do now? So the real sign of victory will be when we start seeing the world through the eye of the scriptures. Then what happens? We will see everything as a sign of victory. We don't have any more failures in life because everything is a perfect arrangement to teach you a lesson. That's how you see. And so there is never a time when you get disappointed in life because you have the wisdom of scriptures that guide you all your life. Right? Next, let's read the third section, Bhakta Vatsala. Krishna as Bhakta Vatsala. 21 to 27. Can anyone volunteer, please?
Yes, Prabhu. This is Sagar.
Yeah, Sagar, go ahead.
Yeah, Arjuna said, "O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms." Text 23. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Text 24. Sanjaya said, "O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties." Text 25. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, "Just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here." Text 26. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his father-in-law and well-wishers. Text 27. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus.
So interestingly, when the war is about to begin, Arjuna asks Krishna to actually take the chariot just between the armies. And he immediately sees all these people, like we discussed just now. So here, interestingly, suppose you go to a movie, especially in Indian movies. We all had this experience to see when the movie hero enters the screen, there is going to be special soundtrack and special appearance, special steps. We always see this kind of a introduction to the protagonist in the or the movie hero in the movies, isn't it? But interestingly here, Krishna has taken the position of the chariot driver, right? In a war, chariot driver position is not very respectable in the sense, because war is such a intense operation. Oftentimes the warrior has the right and claim to kick the chariot driver to direct the chariot in the right direction, because he will not have time to speak sometimes. He might be shouting at the opponent, or telling something, and he might sometimes kick left or right to move the chariot in the direction he wants. So that is the position that Krishna has taken to his own devotee Arjuna. So that is the magnanimity and as well as egoless attitude of Lord Krishna towards his own devotees. He is ready to serve them at any in any position that they may desire. It's like Mark Zuckerberg becoming a driver for his own driver, chauffeur for his own driver. We don't see such a thing in this world, isn't it? Because that's not how people think they are the superior. When a person is superior, he thinks he's he never honors his juniors as much. So it's very difficult in this world actually to tolerate, to see that subordinates are superior to anything. But you can see in Krishna's stead, he is actually ready to accept a lower position to his own devotee. And Arjuna asks Krishna to move the chariot between the two armies. Krishna takes it near Bhishma and Drona. Interestingly, he does not take towards Duryodhana. All these people are assembled. He would have taken anywhere, but he takes right in between his teacher and grandfather. Naturally, what happens to Arjuna? He becomes, naturally becomes weakened in his determination to fight. If he has taken him to say, Duryodhana, come on, I'm going to fight you right now. That's how Arjuna would have thought, isn't it? Because naturally, it's easy to have that fighting mood against Duryodhana versus his own grandfather, loving teacher. So Arjuna immediately thinks, how can I kill these respectable people who I have worshipped all my life, right? So the lesson for us is, our body is like a chariot, and Krishna is the Paramatma within our heart. He actually directs us to various situations in life, right? We are put in circumstances we have never expected in life sometimes. So when we go through different challenges, especially many times we put into situations or circumstances which we never want to deal with, but we are put into. That's how life brings, right? Life brings us to different situations of life. So one may wonder why such a thing happens, because the reason is, this universe is like a university. Universe is like a university, and you get in a university, you often get tests to really check how your learning is going on, right? Because once you submit yourself to university, it is the natural duty of the university to make sure you learn the lessons appropriate, because you represent the university and the teachers of the university. So naturally, in our life, we go through different challenges. unwanted. We never want to deal with such situations, but we will be pushed into such situations. And these challenges are not like you're not going to lose $1 billion suddenly because you only have, say, 200K, you will only lose some of it. So the challenges in our life are tailor-made to address our current state of consciousness. They are actually tailor-made to help us get better from where we stand right now. Right? So here, Krishna is in the heart. Sometimes we make wrong choices. We try to take the philosophy in the way we like it. We should not do that. We should accept the lessons of Gita as it is. And we may wonder, for Arjuna, Krishna is directly available. He can guide him. What about me? I don't have Krishna in my life. So that's why we have Bhagavad Gita. Even though Krishna is not directly available to us, all his teachings are there in Bhagavad Gita. If we want specific principles on how to apply these teachings, we will get the right guidance if we approach the people who actually understand and follow the teachings of Gita. Right? So if we read Gita every day, like I was telling right before, when we are peaceful, just steadily practice spiritual life sincerely. If you read Gita every day, it gives us the direction to address our head issues as well as heart issues when the challenges come in life. You don't prepare, many people do what? When a person in their home dies, that's when they start opening Gita and hear Gita from a video or audio. They go in the reverse. But when we steadily understand in our daily life, practice some aspect of spiritual life and read some Bhagavad Gita, when challenges come, then we naturally have the right mindset to face that. It helps us solve both our mental as well as emotional issues. It gives us strength. And we know Krishna already loves us, right? Krishna says, Aham bija pada pita, right? All the living entities, I'm the seed giving father. Not only human beings, every living entity, Sakala Charachara Jivas, all the living entities in this world, in this existence, are fathered by Krishna originally. I'm the seed giving father, Krishna says. And who is our mother? Our real mother, true mother is Mother Nature. Mother Nature is the mother, and father is God, Krishna, right? And as a father would always love his children, isn't it? Between son and father, who loves the other person the most? Anybody? Between you and your son, or you and your daughter, who loves the other person the most?
Parents.
Yeah, it's always the parents who love the children the most. So naturally, Krishna loves us more than what we love him. It's with no doubt we should understand this. Now then we understand, why do I get challenges? Why is life not so convenient and peaceful? And then we'll never learn the importance of connecting with God. Because our true happiness is not in this world. We actually are truly happy in Vaikuntha. That's where we belong. We actually turned our face and came to this world thinking that we can enjoy on our own. Now he has given us scriptures, the ways and means to live in this world. He's supporting in every way. And when we turn towards him, like a son turns towards his father, his rich father, like Bill Gates, right? We are like begging in the streets, forgetting that our father is actually like Bill Gates, something like that. We don't know our relationship with God and how much he loves us and what all he has to offer us. in this world, we are trying to toil, trying to make some little money here and there, trying to enjoy the little things of this world, thinking that there is nothing better than this, but we don't know our good riches. Our father is the richest of all. What is Bill Gates? He's nothing, right? His riches are like a tiny fraction compared to what God owns, and he's the proprietor of everything. So, right? So that's the thing we can learn. He loves us the most. And then why do we get challenges? So that we learn to turn to him and understand our connection with him, appreciate that connection, and try to realign our life with him and go ultimately back to him. And that's our true happiness. So that's the lesson we can learn from the previous section. So now this is the last kind of section where Arjuna goes on speaking what all reasons he has to tell on why he doesn't want to fight. Interestingly, he doesn't want to fight. And after seeing his father, his grandfather, and his teacher, he was weakened in his heart on the will to fight. So now let's quickly read 28 to 46. It's a long section, maybe 10 verses. Each of you can read 28 to 46. Can anyone read for me 28 up to 35?
I can read, Prabhu.
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
But window is blocking. Can you remove the windows?
Oh, okay. Can you see now?
No, still there. There, four windows are there.
Oh,
I think they are on your screen, Mataji.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, let somebody read then.
okay. Yeah, maybe some windows are blocking Mataji. Can anybody else help read these now?
Yes, Prabhu, I can go.
Yeah.
Arjun said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Text 29. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow, Gandiva, is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. Text 30. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune. O Krishna, killer of Keshi demon. Text 31. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in the battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Text 32 to 35. O Govinda, of what avail to us our kingdom, happiness, or even life itself when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the son of Dhritarashtra?
See, he's even though the other side is so bent on killing them, no, he's not willing. He's not willing to fight. That's like a very soft. That's all because the soft heart of Arjuna, being a devotee. Can anyone read up to 41? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I can read.
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Sin will text 36. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Text 37 and 38. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Text 39. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Text 40. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny.
So he's not talking just like that. He's actually referring to Dharma Sastra when he's speaking. Interestingly. Okay, go ahead. Next. Anybody else can read the last verses? Anyone volunteers to read?
I can continue otherwise, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Text 41. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Text 42. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Text 43. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Text 44. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Text 45. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Text 46. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief.
So finally, what Arjuna did, he just sat down. After giving all these reasons, was indecisive about what is the action one should do. So in summary, from verse 28 to 46, Arjuna gives 5 reasons as to why he doesn't want to fight. The first reason is in 4 verses, 28 to 30, his compassion. He was very, very compassionate towards killing his own relatives. It's called compassion for the body. Right? So this is answered in 2nd chapter, verses 13 onwards, by Krishna when he presents Atma Jnana as part of answering this part of query of Arjuna about why he doesn't want to fight. It is like this. Suppose there is a great surgeon and a person had a gangrene disease, means the part of the body is spoiled. So what would the doctor do to protect the rest of the body? He has to amputate because there is no other way to improve the situation. So similarly, killing is not bad when it is done for the right intent. So to protect dharma, to re-establish dharma, Krishna has to, overall orchestrate this war so that the evil elements in the society will be taken off. Just like when you have a crop, naturally there will be weeds, and it is the duty of the farmer to make sure the weeds are taken out at the right time so that he had a bounty of crop. So similarly, Arjuna, Arjuna's misplaced compassion was countered with the wisdom of Atmajnana by Krishna in second chapter. So and then secondly, loss of enjoyment. So the reason that Arjuna gives is, hey, if I kill all my relatives, who will be there to enjoy with? When we become victorious in some war, the real joy is when we actually celebrate with our own family members. And now I'm killing my own family members. What is the joy in that? Yeah. So this will be countered later on, that the real enjoyment is not actually on the material platform. Arjuna's enjoyment that he's thinking of is actually on the material platform. It is like, you all know, right? Onida television, there is an advertisement. Neighbors envy, owners pride. If you remember, it's a long, very old advertisement. The idea is that if you have something that's better than others, when others feel envious of it, you become happy. And I mean, not only in the negative sense, you also enjoy with your friends when you have something. But that is on the material platform. But the problem with that is everything material is temporary. Nothing is going to sustain forever. So the happiness that you derive in the company of your own friends and relatives is short-lived. So the satisfaction, real satisfaction in the, if suppose you won a competition, or you become like a state topper or something in some test, you're not so happy. You're a little bit happy with the result, but unless your friends or others recognize it, you don't really feel happy about it. And in fact, if your friend comes and doesn't congratulate you, you feel, what is wrong with this guy? He doesn't know what I did right now. So material enjoyment is always like that. It always is temporary and is also a source of misery many times, because you have certain expectations in life. So that's how it works. But true satisfaction is at a spiritual level. So Arjuna's argument about loss of enjoyment is again on the material platform. Thirdly, Arjuna talks about sinful reactions that would come out of killing one's own relatives. But the problem is, the people that he is trying to kill, they are not just relatives, they are also aggressors. An aggressor can be killed anytime. Who is an aggressor? An aggressor is a person who tries to poison you, like they did to Bhima, or they tried to kill via the house made of lac, or in other instances, who usurps your land. That's what they exactly did. They threw out in the gambling match the Pandavas, right? Or one who robs one's wife. That's what they did with Draupadi. They tried to rob Draupadi and strip her naked. So these are called aggressors. An aggressor, doesn't matter he is a relative or not, he can be at once killed. There is no sin in killing an aggressor. So that is the reasoning for that. So this is one of the reasons he says is sinful reactions by killing these people. And then finally, the reason he gives is destruction of family traditions. If all these men were killed, what happens to their wife, children, all these men, women, and the weak, meaning the grandparents and all who are left over, they're all weak. Who is going to protect them? And by, by seeing the availability of so many weak people in the society, some of the wretched people will take advantage of women, and they try to uh, try to do things that are not good for the society, and may generate children that are not properly born. So this kind of hybrid progeny can cause destruction of family traditions, because the children were not going to be raised properly in the right consciousness, and so they won't learn any value system. Naturally, they don't offer pinda and other things, so naturally the family tradition will go down. These are all very, very logical, systematic, and reasonable arguments given by Arjuna. And then finally he says, indecision, meaning he was indecisive. He's not sure what he wants to do. So these are the reasons that Arjuna gives for why he doesn't want to fight. Now let's apply this to our own practical life. What are the reasons people give on why they don't want to take to spiritual life? Right? And people think, if I become a devotee, I become serious, and I don't, naturally show compassion to my own body, right? Sometimes people think, oh, if I become too spiritual, I will not take care of my own body properly. Like I would regulate myself from drinking wine, or having illicit relationships. I'm going to lose a lot of my current freedom that I have. But actually, for example, take intoxication. It is actually, intoxication is not a, is not a choice of freedom. Actually, one becomes very much addicted and become habituated, and is going to lose his health and relationships and money and everything. So in a way, it is actually an imprisonment. All these things that we avoid to as part of taking to Krishna consciousness, they're going to actually free us from doing so much nonsense. So much time is available for better things in life. You can read scriptures, and you can improve your own life in many ways, because you don't do any nonsense. Your mind is not running after women, or not running after wine, or clubs, or all this nonsense is gone out of your mind. So it's clean, and you have so it's actually it's called regulative principles of freedom. Your mind is freed of all the nonsense of life that every materialist is hankering for. So it's a good thing, right? Loss of enjoyment. As I said, the real enjoyment is on the spiritual platform, right? So the material platform, the joy that we get is always temporary. It's not really, permanent. So we need to seek spiritual enjoyment on spiritual platform to really become joyful and lead a satisfied and meaningful life. And how do we do that? We do that through A, B, C, D, E. Easy to remember. A for association, meaning like all of us are coming together to discuss Bhagavad Gita. That's called association. B for Bhagavad Gita, studying Bhagavad Gita. C for chanting. All of or most of you are already chanting something every day, some mantras, Hare Krishna mantras every single day. And then D for diet, eating food that is offered to God. And also you can worship your deity at home. And then finally engaging in some seva. You can do so many sevas. If you reach out to temple, they can engage you in different services in the kitchen or the temple hall or somewhere. You can there are always some services that can be engaged in to serve Lord. So in this way, we can always, there is real joy. This is the real joy of life, because it is on the spiritual platform. And sometimes the fear of sinful reactions. People think, I'm worshipping this demigod and that demigod. Will I get sinful reactions if I stop worshipping them and start worshipping Krishna? No. There is no sinful reaction in not worshipping any other demigod. Many people worship so many demigods, because all demigods are much more happy when you worship Vishnu or Krishna, Rama or Narsingha or Krishna, these forms, Vishnu forms. When you worship them, everyone is actually satisfied. It's like watering the root of a tree. When you water the root of a tree, do you need to separately water each and every leaf and fruit? We don't need to. Why? Because by watering the root, the nourishment is reached to every part of the tree, including all the fruits and leaves and branches. Everything gets nourished. So similarly, it is mentioned that Krishna is like Taror Mula. Taror Mula means the root of existence, of everything. So when you actually have the opportunity to water that root or worship that Lord Vishnu or Krishna, then you naturally, there is no sinful reaction. There is no need to fear, oh, I'm not worshipping that demigod, he might feel upset with me, I'm worshipping all these days, suddenly I'm stopped. No, they will be more happy that you actually are trying the right thing. Suppose you have a prime minister and your local MLA at your home. If you start praising your local MLA before your prime minister, more than prime minister feeling embarrassed about you, the local MLA feels embarrassed. Oh my God, why is he worshipping me when the prime minister is around me? He has seen only local people. He doesn't know anything beyond, so he's just worshipping him. So, but unfortunately, that is not the right worship. So the MLA would be much more happy if the localite actually worships prime minister. Then he understands, oh, this MLA actually left a good impression about me, like that he thinks. So do not feel that your stopping worship of certain demigod is going to make them upset or anything like that. Okay. And then destruction of family traditions, right? As Arjuna mentioned, there will be family tradition destruction and all. And similarly, when when one takes to Krishna consciousness, oh, in our family we used to do that puja, this puja. Now we are not actively doing that. We are only doing this chanting and hearing Bhagavad Gita. We don't have time for other things. Am I actually, stopping the traditions of my family? No, actually. The family traditions as such are degrading. My friend would tell the 5 generations of his, he visited once a family, and in that family there is a pictures of 5 dynasties in sequence. First, the oldest personality, the head of the family, and then secondly, the person after that is in the picture next, and the person coming after that in the dynasty is is attached as a picture in the next place. So like that, there are 5 pictures of his dynasty, right? And when you look at them, it is very clear. The first person is, he wears a nice, nice culture dress. He has a tilak on his forehead, and he was very humble in his demeanor, folding his hands together. And if you look at the next picture, there is a big change. The dress is now a little more royal, little more modern, and there is no, there are a few other things that have already reduced in the, in the culture, in the tradition, following of the tradition. And the third generation even further reduced. He doesn't even have tilak. So it means that now they have stopped worshipping God, as a family tradition. And the fourth generation is even more degraded. Now he is not only doesn't have tilak, he has a cigarette in the mouth. So like that, the generation after generation, the family traditions are anyway going down. There is no, in most of the families, there is no preservation of any traditions. What is the point in following a broken tradition? Instead, this is one of the reasons many people say, oh, we are not actually following our family tradition. But most of the systems are already broken, so there is nothing that you're losing. In fact, when you start following Krishna consciousness, this is the best tradition. You teach the right principles to your own children. You have a good practice every single day. You chant, you hear, read. There are so many nice cultural aspects. You pass this culture to your children. They become strong, strong from their very young age, right? The culture today is all broken. The way we celebrate birthdays. Sometimes we, when we celebrate birthday, we actually kick the person. That's how we celebrate, isn't it? So that's not any celebration, right? In Krishna consciousness, we actually pray for them. We pray that they become more, God conscious, become favored by God, and so that's how we pray, right? So that's all, so we are not going to miss anything by taking to teachings of Gita and practicing spiritual life, and yeah, so that's it. So if you have any questions, we can discuss for a few minutes. How did you all like this summary? Anybody?
This was very good, Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining this. This it's a good a reminder for all of us. Like after third chapter, it feels like we were forgetting these things, right? To just reinforce the things that we can practice in our lives.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's true.
Very good, Prabhu, today's.
Okay, thank you. Hope you all felt the flow of the chapter and were able to relate to the message, what exactly was happened. I'm going to share the recording as well. You can hear it again. That way the points become fixed in your mind. Yeah. Anybody has any other thing, any other questions or anything?
Actually, I joined only from third chapter, so I heard the recordings which you had sent, but it's really good to hear from you again the first chapter and second chapter.
Yeah, that's true. So every time we speak, we'll add new points. It's not always the same. If you look at that class, there are very many different points, but overall flow is the same. Yeah, it's again, hearing is going to add on to our knowledge, right? Yeah. Shweta Mataji's mic is not working, I think. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Yeah, okay. So if nothing, no other questions, we'll end here. And we'll see you next week. Okay?
Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
See you all next week.